George Clooney said he enjoyed filming his new movie with Julia Roberts, but joked he got tired of her showing up on his Australian doorstep every day. The 61-year-old actor opened up about working again with Julia, 51, while promoting their new movie Ticket to Paradise on The Late Show with Stephen Colbert on CBS. "It was fun for us to go shoot it. Julia is a good friend," George said. George said they all stayed on Hamilton Island but that he brought along with his Amal wife and children and Julia came alone. "At some point, that gets a little annoying because she's not up there with her family," George said. "She comes up every morning and we have to bring her food and drive her around. At some point it's like, Julia Roberts, leave me alone." "So many men have that problem," Stephen quipped. George shared that he recently celebrated his 8th anniversary with wife Amal by going out to dinner. He said he also bought her a present, but wouldn't share what it was. "I didn't get her a house or anything like that," George said. Stephen said he had been to George's house in Lake Como where he said that he got drunker than he intended. "That was a fun night," George said. Sacha Baron Cohen and Isla Fisher were there and they showed up in lederhosen. "They were tanked," Stephen said. "The funny part about that is that's a joke, you show up and that's funny, but then Therese, a whole night you have got to wear that outfit," George said. "That's not fun." Stephen asked him about his 2 5-year-old twins and George said at this point they didn't know he was an actor. "We really kind of sheltered them from that," George said. "My son, his favorite character is Batman and I told him I was Batman and he said yeah, not anymore. And I was like, if you knew how right you were," George said. "I tried to destroy that franchise. I almost did. They don't quite get any of that, which is nice quite honestly," George said. George said his son was into playing chess. "Speaking of friends, your best friend is Brad Pitt," Stephen said. "Oh, pretty boy Pitt," George said. Stephen then played a clip of Brad saying George was one of most handsome men in the world. Stephen asked him if he had anything to say about him. "I will say that I think that I am the most handsome man," George said. "I will say that I think his first answer was himself. And then somebody said, let's do that again. Don't say yourself, but he is a good friend and he and I are about to do a movie together." Stephen asked him about the fact that both he and Brad took pay cuts for this upcoming movie so it would be released in theaters and asked why that was so important to be on the big screen. "There are certain movies in particular, horror films, comedies, that are really the best with a crowd, with a group of people," George said. Stephen wanted to know more about his participation with Ethan Hawke on his documentary about Paul Newman. George said Ethan still had the transcripts of the interviews that Paul had destroyed and had actors do the voices. "He burned the tapes," George said of Paul. "He taped all of these conversations and then he decided not to do it and he burned the tapes." George did Paul Newman's voice in the film. "That doesn't work out so well for me," George said. Stephen asked him if ever worked with Ethan before. George revealed they were going to do the film The Notebook. "We were in talks for a really long time for it," George said. At one point, I went home and I think I was watching Cool Hand Luke or one of those great Paul Newman films and I'm watching it and I'm the age that he was in Cool Hand Luke and I'm like, I don't look like Paul Newman. George also talked about his philanthropic Clooney Foundation. Amal and I, we have a foundation, where we give relief through lawyers and all that and we monitor trials, George said. We are monitoring trials in about 40 different countries. We are trying to put a light on stuff that when it's dark you get away with a lot. George said they particularly like to shine a light on journalists. He said at his most recent Talby Awards they would be recognizing Philippines journalist Maria Raza. She's as brave as they get, George said. She's standing up for telling the truth in the Philippines when the government, oftentimes, is complicated. George said she was facing 85 years in jail. I'm worried about her, George said. She was Amal's client and she won a Nobel Prize. The award ceremony would be celebrity-packed. We have Michelle Obama, Meryl Streep, and Julia Roberts, just people, nothing really, George joked. Bruce and Patty are going to sing. Ticket to Paradise is scheduled to be released in the US on October 21 by Universal Pictures.